This episode of The Unstarving Musician is powered by liner notes. Learn from the hundreds of musicians and industry professionals I've spoken with for The Unstarving Musician on topics such as marketing, songwriting, touring, sync licensing, and much more. Sign up for liner notes at unstarvingmusician.com. It's an email newsletter from yours truly in which I share some of the best knowledge gems garnered from the many conversations featured on The Unstarving Musician. You'll also be privy to the latest podcast episodes and liner notes subscriber exclusives. Sign up at unstarvingmusician.com. It's free and you can unsubscribe at any time. Welcome to another episode of The Unstarving Musician. I'm Rabanzo. This is my podcast. It features conversations with independent music artists and industry professionals and relevant special topic episodes featuring yours truly. It's all intended to help independent music artists better understand the marketing, business, and creative processes that power us to do more of what we love, make music. Did I say power us to do more of what we love? I meant empower us to do more of what we love, make music. All right, well, now that we got that fixed. This is episode 250 of The Unstarving Musician. Feels like a big deal to me. Stacey Bedford, CEO of Bandzoogle, is my guest for this special 250th episode. She didn't know at the time we were recording about the whole 250 thing, but we had a great conversation. Before we get to that, The Unstarving Musician needs your support. You can support us in many ways. You can follow us on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts. You can tell a friend about the podcast. That would be amazing. Or you can visit unstarvingmusician.com/crowd sponsor or the show notes for this episode to learn about the many ways of offering your support, and we appreciate it. I had my first gig in Querétaro this last weekend. It was loosely tight, far from perfect, but it was good. We got invited back. We got rebooked for another show, and which is great. It is a great venue, and I felt honored to be there. I feel honored to be going back, so that's cool. And yesterday I went wine tasting with some friends of ours have a wine tour business, and they were scoping out some new possible locations, destinations for their tours, both of which I'd been to, but it was fun to go with them and get treated. Not have to pay this time. It was really cool. It was the best kind of day drinking you can do, really, drinking wine in the middle of the day. And the place we were at has some farming going on, so we got to interact with some animals. We got to taste some amazing handcrafted cheese made in Querétaro. I ate like a pig. It was fun. And I have more of that planned this weekend. A new place we've not been to. Some friends invited us. Some friends who have friends visiting invited us to join them, so we're going to check out another new winery. David Crosby left us a couple of weeks ago. I failed to mention that in the last episode. He'll be missed. Wishing lots of love to his family and close contemporaries. What a dent he made in the music universe and in the universe at large. Stacey Bedford and I actually spoke once before this episode, and that was back in November of 2020. It was for my other podcast called Morning Tempo, which has gone away. I took it down. I just couldn't do both of them, this one and that one. But I still have the conversation in the archives. I'd hoped to include some of that conversation in this episode, but time has gotten the best of me, so maybe I'll append it in a revisited version of this episode. Dave Cool from Bandzoogle has been on this podcast before. Stacey and I spoke this time to discuss Bandzoogle's recent milestone of surpassing $100 million in commission-free sales of music, merch, and tickets through their member websites. That is really cool for them and really cool for all the musicians who were part of that. Stacey and I also talk about bees. Bees? Bees? Yes, she's into bees, which you'll learn. We talk skeleton humor and how we got here in the universe. The significance of Bandzoogle's most recent 5 years, lessons learned since her humble beginnings in customer service at Bandzoogle, her current passions, the value of unplugging, her public speaking gigs, and her best advice to creative artists and musicians, the importance of websites for musicians. Of course, we talked about that, and a couple of relevant success stories and more. I hope you enjoyed this conversation. Here is me talking to Stacey Bedford, CEO of Bandzoogle. Remind me where in Canada you live.
I'm in Ottawa and Dave Cool's in Montreal. So we're about maybe like an hour and 20 minutes apart.
All right. You
Yeah.
ever hang out?
Well, we did pre-pandemic. I would host co-working sessions at my house, and all of the Bandzoogle staff who were close enough would come and work here for the day. But we haven't been doing that in the last couple of years.
Oh, that's too bad. Hopefully you'll get back to it this year.
I hope so. And Dave has had a baby since then, so he's been quite busy.
Oh my God. Poor bastard.
He's in the trenches right now, so he's happy to be isolated, I think.
I bet. And how are the bees?
Oh, the bees are great. They're in their winter slumber right now, so there's not much for a beekeeper to do. But I guess we could do the wax processing and build some, make some candles and plan out for next year. Order some new bees and that sort of thing.
Yeah, yeah, cool. I was just last night watching an episode of a Netflix series called, I think it's called Salt, Fat, Acid, Heat, or something of that order.
Okay,
And have you seen it or heard of it?
I've heard of it. It's like the importance of those ingredients in cooking, right?
Yeah, and I watched the acid episode last night, and there was a section in there about bees and honey of the Yucatan Peninsula of Mexico.
Oh,
Yeah, it was pretty neat. You might enjoy it. It's like a 40-50 minute, well, I should say probably 50 minute to an hour show, but it was cool. I was thinking about that as I was remembering about your bee hobby,
oh,
your bee passion.
yeah, I'll definitely check it out. Thanks for letting me know about that.
Yeah, yeah, it's a cool show. Um, can you please tell me what your interest, or if there's a connection with you and you can do anything magic skeleton?
Oh, it's just a quote that I heard and I loved it. I first of all, I love the humor. Like I think skeletons are I don't know. I love anything related to Halloween and this is pre-Wednesday. I've just always been gravitated towards the gloomy. But I think I'm not really a spiritual person and I don't know if people have the capacity to understand how we're here. So I think Magic Skeleton is as good of a guess as anybody else's, and the fact that we're just here in the universe with endless possibilities. I just love the quote. It resonated with me, and it reminds me that when things are hard, we're pretty impossible creation. So remember that.
Yeah, yeah. You mentioned Wednesday. What an amazing show.
It's so amazing. Yeah, I love it. I just there's so many things I love about it. I watched it with my son, actually, my 12-year-old, and yeah, I think it's it's nice that there's a show that encourages people to be different and celebrates that.
Yeah, definitely. So I was looking, by the way, I meant to bring this up at the top of our conversation, but your appearance on my other podcast, which has since gone away, but I still have the interview. I'll probably post it in relation to this one, but on the Unstarving Musician podcast, but was back, it published back in November of 2020, which means we spoke sometime before then. I do remember we were solidly in the pandemic and we were talking about all the remote work that you guys have always done and the way things were going since since the big change we were all going through.
Yeah, I remember that. I had a really nice time speaking with you. I was excited to do it again.
Oh, that's nice. That's nice. Well, okay, so you have much bigger things to talk about. So I was reading a press release that Bandzoogle members have reached the milestone of surpassing $100 million in commission-free sales of music, merch, and tickets through their Bandzoogle websites. Congratulations.
Thank you so much. It's something we were so proud to celebrate. It's really exciting to celebrate other people, and it makes other people happy too.
Of course, yeah, it sure does, especially musicians, right? We need all the celebrating we can get.
Yes.
Even though we're good at just celebrating in general, but to be celebrated, that's another thing. So, yeah, I was looking over all the built-in tools that you guys have. So you have tools for the e-commerce ones specifically. So you have tools for selling music, merch, tickets, offering fan subscriptions, crowdfunding, selling digital merch, and accepting virtual tips, and some others that weren't even on the list I was looking at. Is there, well, A, you can mention any of the others that you're particularly fond of, but also I wanted to know, is there anything missing from that suite of tools or anything new coming out that you're thinking about as a company?
Oh my gosh, it's these questions that I always have the most trouble answering because Bandzoogle is like an incredibly vast platform and we're constantly adding new things. So we very rarely decommission features because we find that like because we're such an old company, we just celebrated our 19th birthday. Trends in like sales types come around just as fashion trends do. So if you create something like, a lot of people are talking about how MP3 sales are not as prevalent these days. Like that's something that Benzugal has always offered and we haven't removed, but like in certain music businesses, that's like quite a popular sales item. So we offer so many options. There's like a tip jar, donations option, virtual and live ticket sales, where you could embed live streams on the page, sell virtual tickets, and accept tips right on the page. You could put that behind a tiered subscription. We sell singles, pre-orders. We added gift cards I guess not too long ago. Um, Drop shipping through Printful. And along with all of those things, there's many different selling options. So you could sell things for a fixed price, pay what you want, like music and subscriptions. You can offer items for free, discounted, free with email. If you're planning to build your email list, you can pre-order, crowdfund, bundle items, upsell them. Like our sales tools are quite vast.
It sounds like it. And you did throw in a couple of new ones, so that's nice. So gift gift cards, uh, kind of new. I guess the Printful thing is a little bit new, and there was something else, but like you said, it's vast, isn't it?
Yes, and it's in the last because we recognize that we have such a big tool set. It's important to, I wouldn't say handhold, but coach our customers and our members on how to use these tools properly and create different strategies for them. So in the last year, we've also created a selling tools dashboard. So within the Benzugle control panels, you could build your website if you want, you could build landing pages, you could create email lists, but then there's also this dedicated section to just handle all of your e-commerce activities and products and services and files and all of that.
That has to be handy both from the company side and the customer side that you coach all of us how to use these types of features properly, not only on your system, I imagine, but just like how to make the most of the feature in general for a musician. I know that a lot of us will try things and we might not have success with it because we're a little in the dark or didn't do all the homework to make the most of it. And I imagine sometimes we just find that we're particularly good or really into offering some type of offering over maybe another.
Exactly. And like the one of the benefits to being such an old company is that we have all this data on like what works and what doesn't work for different artist types, even within, for example, like a specific genre, like the folk community or the metal community or record labels. Everybody has different audiences with different preferences. And it's really interesting to provide like this wide array of options for selling different merch, digital items, services, and just helping to guide our customers based on like the data that we understand, and what makes a more successful artist. And we provide a ton of content on our blog that's public, free for everybody. And our comms team also puts on these great webinars for members often. And of course, through partnerships too. We speak with other types of musicians, and yeah, like a big component of Benzugle is education in the music business.
Yeah, it's funny whenever I'm looking for topics to either write about or talk about on the podcast, and I'll do a search on topic XYZ. and 9 times out of 10 Bandzoogle's, first page,
Oh,
among maybe some others, because you guys have put out such a vast amount of content too, which is, I know, appreciated by the community at large. I also read that over half of the 100 million in sales by your members, Bandzoogle members, has been generated in the last 5 years, and then um, the MP3 download feature came out all the way back in 2006, if I have that part right. But is the fact that over half of that was generated in the last 5 years, is this a product of new features in the last 5 years, the changing music business, both, or is it a little bit of something else?
I think there's a few things that happened. Absolutely, the like there's really been the rise of like the SaaS business and the business SaaS business model, and just like tech companies creating tools to let artists be able to manage that side of the business on their own. Also, the accessibility of these tools. For example, we added the Printful integration within the last couple of years, and that really helped artists be able to dabble in a virtual music a merch table without like all of that upfront investment, which is usually a blocker, especially for small bands, because it's a lot of investment to purchase all that inventory, to store it, to ship it, and also to determine things like sizing mixes and even preferences when you're learning about your audience if you're a newer band. Drop shipping has really allowed artists to try a bunch of different products without the investment. So there's definitely been ways that the advancements in technologies in the last few years have made it more accessible and easier for artists to, take charge of earning revenue independently. And I think like some of these tools have been around for years, and the adoption of them has really picked up, especially since the pandemic hit, because artists weren't able to, uh, you know, like touring was pretty much shut down globally, and venues were closed, and artists needed to really look at the tools that were available to them that they might not have been leveraging in previous years, because they had these more traditional income generating methods. And the cool thing about this, like it's been a very hard last 3 years for artists, but the positive that came out of it is that because artists had to try these other tools and like new money making methods, now that everything is opened up, touring is back on, things are slowly starting to return back to how they were regular business operations for bands. Now we find that artists are continuing to leverage these tools that they were kind of not forced, but like had to try new things during the pandemic. So now that the world is returning back to normal and activities are turning back to normal, artists continue to keep like a virtual merch table. Maybe those subscriptions that they had tested out during the pandemic are still generating revenue for them. And then there's also live streaming. Some artists found that, maybe they started offering music lessons during that time, which they didn't do before. And they're able to offer them virtually through their website with these different tools that we offer. And now they continue to do that. So I think that it's kind of a mixed bag. It's the state of the world, all of the things that artists were faced with, and the advancements of technology during that time.
Yeah, it's kind of funny what a global pandemic will do to
I
people
know.
with in terms of helping them discover things like, oh, I guess I better be ready next time, or oh, I could kick myself for not doing that sooner, or oh, I really love this and I didn't know it until the pandemic made me do it.
Exactly. Like we had developed the subscriptions feature a few years ago, like pre-pandemic, and it picked up a lot more during the pandemic. That artists were testing that out, because it's a little bit more work to generate content, put it behind like a gated page, and if somebody is subscribed and expecting content or something like in exchange regularly, you have to work towards that. It's not a set it and forget it.
Yeah, yeah. I'm going to read a quote by you for those who miss your press tour, and then I have my follow up question. The quote is: One of our projects has always been to help musicians make more money from their music, which is why we've never taken a commission from sales. We're so proud that our members have reached such an incredible milestone, especially since all of that money went directly to them. What have you learned about the music business, musicians, and Bandzoogle since your humble beginnings in customer service at Bandzoogle, if I remember right?
That's a big question. I think what I learned and what I take away from those humble beginnings that I had, I'm really grateful for them because it gave me the perspective that to serve people is really fulfilling. And ultimately, even if the reason why you're doing something is selfish, if it results in something that's for the greater good of the people around you, that's okay. So I just found like intrinsically, like being of service, whether it's to my artist community or now like my staff is really my focus. That if you're creating a great environment, if you're making everybody around you happy, if you're providing value to them, then you're going to do well yourself.
You mentioned the staff. Has there been kind of a shift for you in your role where previously your role was to be more focused on the artist community, and now maybe someone else has the reins to that, and you move towards the staff? Is that kind of a recent development?
I would say that I always try to have my fingers on the pulse. Even today, like I will participate in customer service at least once a month, whether it's like interacting with customers directly or, reading through their feedback to help kind of steer the ship and make sure that I'm headed in the direction that helps them. But I would say that absolutely, as your company evolves, like when I started out at Bandzoogle, we were only 3 staffers, and now we're a team of about 30. So part of like moving up the ladder is really relinquishing control. And I hate the word empower, but you really need to empower people to be able to make decisions and trust that people that you hire and you put in these positions of power within your team will you have to trust them with the expertise that you hired them for. So absolutely. We just, at Bandzoogle, we hit a 50-50 gender staff split, which is not that common in tech or music tech specifically.
Mm-hmm.
So I love the idea of like providing opportunities to genders equally and then empowering them to make their own choices.
Yeah, that's nice. That's nice. And what are you, doesn't have to be business related, but what are you excited or passionate about at the moment?
Well, I was joking with my husband last week because we go for the like long walks because we're both working remotely for the last few years together, and we go on these long walks and we make a point to to unplug as often as possible. And I would say, especially in the last 2 years, I've been doing a lot of hiking and just being closer to nature. I think that when you have a lot of responsibilities or stressors in your life, it's really important to have healthy coping strategies. It helps you give back to people when you're actually working if you can unplug for a bit. So I would say just I've spent a lot of time camping, like hiking and just and being under the stars. So yeah, being around nature would be something that I've been prioritizing the last couple of years.
Speaking of outdoors, what is the temperature in the mornings there these
Oh my
days?
gosh. I think it was minus 26 Celsius at one day recently with the wind chill. It's
Okay.
we're under a mountain of snow right now. My window looks like a snow globe.
Oh no.
Yeah. Yeah, I've definitely taken on a lot of winter sports these last few years too. I learned how to ski with my youngest son and just trying to make the most of the weather that we have over here in Canada.
Oh yeah. Do you guys still have a dog?
Yes, Ginger, she's my companion, the only girl in the house aside from me.
Does she is she like my dog? She pretty much warrants the walks and the hiking and the moving about.
Yeah, she's actually we had a long vet appointment yesterday because she has a slipped disc. She's normally quite happy with lounging around like a little sloth in the house, unless there's like a ball or somebody says the WALK word. She's usually happy to just laze around. But yeah, she's a great companion.
Yeah, I'm always saying that for any pain in my arse that our dog might be. He makes me exercise every day, and that's good.
Yeah, yeah, they're great. I think that I read that dogs make you live longer too.
Yep. And may I somehow outlive him with any luck. Do you guys, does Bandzoogle ever talk to musicians about the value of unplugging or, reconnecting with nature, doing things that, I guess, sort of self-care to help themselves serve their audiences and be creative?
Yeah, you know what? Whenever I speak with universities, there's usually a point during the talk where somebody asks me, like, what's the one piece of advice that I would provide? And 100% of the time, it is like the importance of having hobbies outside of what you consider your career, no matter what they are. Like maybe it's some form of martial arts, maybe it's reading books, maybe it's, like going to mixers and socializing. It doesn't really matter what it is, but I always say that what you do outside of your work time really adds value to it, gives you more perspective. It's like working, if you're not like experiencing these other things, what's the point? And also you're kind of like working in a vacuum because you don't have these outside experiences to draw from.
Yeah, that's so true. Where are you going? Are you still in the midst of speaking with people about the recent milestone, or are you on a regular circuit? You just mentioned speaking at universities, and I'm kind of wondering if there are probably other podcasts, but are there places that musicians or members can find more of you besides the Unstarving Musician?
Oh, absolutely. I love, like, I talked about how when I speak at universities, because talking to students is actually my all-time favorite, especially music students. I just feel like they're at a precipice in their career where it's important to set really good habits in your workday and in your life schedule. So I feel like I could have a lot of impact there. So I speak often with different universities, music schools. I just did a keynote at Carleton University, which was a full circle moment for me because I went to school there. So that was really special for me. And I've yesterday I was on a podcast with Bree Noble.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so me and actually Dave Cool and Melanie Keeley, we do a few speaking engagements. I'm doing some awards shows in the coming months too. I will usually post about where you can see me next on my own website, staceybedford.com, which I built on Bandzoogle also.
How did I not know about this website? Well, I'll make sure people can find you there. What is your best advice, speaking of the things you touch upon with students? What's your best advice for the working, aspiring, creative musician with regards to habits in work and life and schedule?
I would say that especially like with the advent of all of these tools that are available to artists online, it could be quite overwhelming. So my best piece of advice would be to just get started somewhere. It's like when you're writing music, the best thing to do is just put your pen to paper and get started somewhere. Don't let all of the stress and the list of things that you could be doing get you down. Just put one foot in front of the other, whether it's like getting up an electronic press kit or just like a single one sheet about your music. Like have a professional place where people can find you and where you control the experience, and you can set goals that you would like your visitors to achieve that are aligned with yours, whether it's gathering their contact information so you can let them know about where to find you at your next show or your next album launch, or if it's downloading your next single. It's just important to get something simple out there and then build on that.
I'm reminded not terribly long ago, I gave just the slightest amount of assistance in a mere phone call with someone that I'm in a music marketing program with, and he goes by the name Gospel Street Pete. Let's see, yeah, gospelstreetpete.com. He created his first website, or at least his first in a very long time, on Bandzoogle after we spoke.
Oh,
And yeah, it was a really kind of a heartwarming thing when he mentioned to the group that I had somehow assisted him with that. In thinking about that and what you just said, do you get opportunities to hear from musicians who recently launched a website, and it could be something from a year ago or 2 years ago, but they've launched their first website, or maybe they had this big gap where they didn't have one. Can you talk about, assuming you do speak with musicians about this, about the impact that you've noticed it has for them versus not having one? Because it seems to be there are just, as you know, there are so many musicians that don't have a website, and they're some of them are really doing some pretty good stuff, or they're trying really hard, and for some it just seems like you can't impress upon them the importance of having this sort of one place that they completely control and have complete ownership of.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, when I first joined Bandzoogle, there was this artist in Australia who created a website with Bandzoogle, and this sounds like a fake story, but the week after she was signed by Sony because she had like this great professional presence. And I think whether your goal is to be like an independent full-time artist or to get a record contract, which is not as common anymore, people are able to do things on their own more. I think that no matter what you do, it's like you're going to an interview and, like, what do you want to show them about yourself? What do you want to tell them? And if you're just relying on social media, then it's like you're in a room with like thousands of other people competing for attention on a scroll. I think that it's important to hang out where your fans might be hanging out and have a presence there, of course. Don't give it all away for free. Like, drive that traffic back to your website, treat it like your hub. Would you have a show and like leave the entire presence and like equipment up to somebody else? Like, it's just there's missed opportunities if you're not putting on a show under your control exactly how you would like it, like branded how you'd want. It's really important to control those aspects of how the world sees you. Having a website versus only having a social media presence allows you to do that without all the other noise around you. So there's definitely examples of artists you had mentioned who haven't had a presence in a while and come back and create a site on Bandzoogle. Like, we had Money Mark, who is like the DJ for the Beastie Boys. We had Megan the Stallion, actually was on Bandzoogle for a while before she got signed to Rock Nation. We have like these examples. We had like Tiffany for a while. Like, we have examples of artists who did not have an online presence, and they're really looking for somewhere to put like their vast catalog, so that people can find them and continue to connect with them and enjoy this lifetime of art that they've created. So it's really heartwarming when you see artists like that who are like, like, I'm 60 years old and I didn't think that I would be able to do this, but now I have a website and I control the experience and all of my things are there and people can enjoy it with me for years to come.
That artist that you mentioned who got signed to Sony, what was her particular roadblock that was preventing her from having a site until she finally did? Do you recall?
Yeah, at the time for her, she felt that it would be too difficult. Like, one of Benzzoogle's key value propositions is ease of use. Like, you can create a website without any coding knowledge or design experience. And you could do it on any device. You could do it on the road. So at the time, this artist felt that there was too many, like, she was like, I can barely send an email. Like, there's no way I could get myself online, like create an online presence. And she was really proud of the fact that she was able to get, a professional looking website out within a week. And we were able to eliminate those barriers for her with technology.
That's amazing. And she had obviously created a good body of work
Yeah.
if she got signed shortly after. Well, I can tell you that Gospel Street Pete, technology was a big barrier for him, and he has a like a visual challenge. I can't remember if it's like dyslexia or something like this.
Mm-hmm.
At the end of our conversation, I had told him, I think Bandzoogle is really worth checking out. It's made for exactly what you want to do, and it's as easy as it gets. I know it's. I mean, even on a platform like Bandzoogle, there's still some things that you have to to do. You have to be comfortable, at some level with your computer and with the internet, right? But
Yeah.
I know his challenges were pretty big. He told me so, and he launched a great looking website. So that speaks to the ease of use and all the support that you folks offer. And I had even told him, feel free to call me if you need some help. But I think within a week of our conversation, he had his site up. So it sounds in a way like the gal that you mentioned.
Oh, that's wonderful.
It really is. Well, Stacey, it has been a pleasure reconnecting with you. I'm going to look back at our first conversation. It's so pandemic heavy, but I'm going to listen back to our initial conversation and see how I can somehow append it to or wrap it into or have it as a bonus piece for people who want to dive a little deeper into what goes on in your head in the world of the world of Bandzoogle. So Bandzoogle.com and StaceyBedford.com. Is there anywhere else that people should go to find out more about you or Bandzoogle?
No, those are two great resources.
Thank you again for your time. It was really lovely speaking with you.
Thank you so much.
If you do not yet have a website for your music, check out Bandzoogle. It was created to help musicians and bands build their website and manage direct-to-fan marketing and sales. Bandzoogle features amazing design options, a commission-free store to sell merch, music, tickets, and you get detailed fan data. And there's more. Try it free at bandzoogle.com. Use the promo code ROBONZO, that's ROBONZO, to get 15% off your first year. You've been listening to The Unstarving Musician with Robonzo. That's me. Please follow us on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts. You can find links and mentions for this episode at unstarvingmusician.com. Thanks again for listening. Peace, gratitude, and a whole lot of love.